Hi, I'm Harry Katrubis, and in this video I'll be explaining the tourist industry in Australia. The Australian tourist industry accounts for 9% of Australia's $1.52 trillion GDP. In fact, 1 in 11 Australians work in the tourist industry. Where does this tourism come from? In 2012, the UK, with cultural and historical ties to Australia, were the largest international group of tourists in Australia, producing 15% of international arrivals. Following the UK is China, the fastest growing tourist group in Australia, accounting for 11.5% of international tourists. Notably, they bring in more money to the economy than tourists from the UK. Then, Australia's closest neighbour, New Zealand, accounted for around 10%. Overseas visitors accounted for around $30 billion to the tourist revenue. Interestingly, Australians themselves spent another $50 billion in domestic tourism. While this isn't an import, it provides strong economic activity for Australia. Australia is an entire continent with a huge range of natural environments. Unlike Europe and Asia, that have a considerable range of cultural artifacts, Australia only grew significantly in the past 200 years. Therefore, the majority of tourism in Australia relies on its natural wonders. The Great Barrier Reef is one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. It is actually the largest concentration of living organisms in the world. Each year, thousands of tourists visit the reef to experience its natural beauty. The Outback, also known as the Red Centre, is an iconic image of Australia. It is one of the driest areas on Earth and has strong associations with Australia's Aboriginal heritage. Its highlight location is Uluru, once known as Ayers Rock. This is a very significant spiritual place for Australia's Indigenous people. 2/3 of Australians live in its major cities, which have very high levels of tourist infrastructure and many attractions. Sydney has its world-famous harbour, and Melbourne is a hub of global sporting events. Canberra, the capital, houses many of Australia's national cultural museums. Australian cities are also becoming famous for their restaurant and cafe scenes. Complementing this is Australia's wine industry, with wine-producing regions in Western Australia and Victoria, but most famous of all in South Australia, with the Barossa Valley frequently producing wines that are classed in the world's top 10. This brings thousands of wine enthusiasts to Australian vineyards every year. Australia is the world's largest country that's completely surrounded by water. It is almost 60,000 kilometers of coastline, which provides countless beaches. Australia has beaches in its cities, such as Sydney's famous Bondi Beach, and many beaches in isolated places. Australia's beaches are noted as one of the best locations for surfing. Tourism Australia is a government agency responsible for design and implementation of tourism policy. It aims to attract tourists to Australia. Tourism Australia works with private sector businesses to maximise benefits of tourism for Australia's economy. Its current strategy for the future is called Tourism 2020, which gives the government and businesses 6 objectives over the coming years. To grow visitor demand from Asia, especially from China and India, by targeting secondary cities, as well as forming new aviation partnerships. Australia already has a very high standard of tourist infrastructure, but the strategy is to improve this in 3 important ways. By improving online access to tourism products, including online visas, and by creating a tourist website for China. By developing more transport infrastructure and capacity, such as allowing regional airports to host international flights, and enabling the operation of budget airlines. By attracting more international investment in hotels, transport networks, and attractions. Also, the initiative seeks to improve the skills of workers in the tourist industry. and to increase productivity in the sector, raising the total tourist spend to $140 billion in 2020. Given the role that tourism plays in the Australian economy, the industry has taken innovative and responsive approaches through strong partnerships to ensure continued growth and competitiveness in the global tourism market.